Well, hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Robbie McHugh, and I'm with the EMS Leadership Academy here today with Lisa.
Hi, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. It's great to be here.
And I don't know if anyone else feels like a penguin on that iceberg today. I heard 150 million people in the U.S. were feeling pretty cold this morning. So
Yes.
love to hear where you're joining in from. If you want to just type that into the comments and just let us know again if the sound sounds okay. We'll be monitoring comments across Facebook. We're guest broadcasting on the High Performance EMS page. We are broadcasting on our website as well and through YouTube. So we would love to hear, again, where about in the world you are joining in from.
Absolutely. We love when people let us know where they're from. And this is one of those topics that is universal. We get questions about recruitment and retention from all over the world. People from all over the world purchase our book because it's focused on this issue. So it's exciting when we have people from all over, the U.S. as well as the rest of the world to share in this conversation.
All right. And today we are, again, talking about EMS recruitment and retention, being the leader people want to follow. And Lisa, you and I did a similar recruitment and retention webinar. It had to have been about a year ago, right?
I think it was almost 2 years ago. When we did, you talk about the three-part one we did?
Three-part series.
Yeah. And this is a little bit different take on it. I mean, it's still based on the same premise, but we really want people to feel like they can make a difference themselves. So we've really focusing this on what can individuals do to be able to impact recruitment and retention, which again is one of the things that a lot of people contact us about because it threatens the very survival of EMS across the world. If we don't have enough people engaged, we don't have enough, future people coming in. It's really creates quite a challenge.
All right. And I guess the first thing is to talk about the goal here, right? Often we kind of liken this to a revolving door on an organization, right? That we say, wouldn't you love to just stop the revolving door in your organization?
Yeah, because if you think about this from what are some new recruitment strategies, or how can I keep people longer? We don't have money to give them raises or keep them. Compete with other organizations in those kinds of ways. It doesn't really doesn't get to the source of the issue. So our intention here is to help people understand our philosophy and what we've seen in all the years we've been doing this, both in EMS and for me, in many, many organizations of many different kinds, both for-profit and nonprofit, and what really works. And it's not about just giving you individual things to do, right? So here's some actions, use this kind of an ad versus that kind of a, strategy. But instead, kind of going upstream a little bit and saying, okay, what if we could just stop this revolving door? It's not that people will never leave, and it's not like we won't bring new people in, but it won't feel like this never-ending revolving door battle.
Absolutely. And I think all too often people say we need new people, we need new people. They get so focused on the recruitment part, they forget about the second part, the retention part, which can be just as fruitful if that's what you focus on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, we often start our programs talking about this because this is the critical component for anyone, not just leaders, is to understand how do you get the most out of this program? Because you can watch this program and be like, yeah, know that, or, oh, I don't agree with that, or, it's good, it's bad, like all these different ways that you can listen. But that will prevent you from getting the true value of this program. And so we're going to really invite you to think about listening in a new way. You could say that we all come to any conversation really with a default way of listening. And one of the, we tend to think about listening as a yes, no thing. Like either I'm listening or I'm not listening. And there's actually a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of filters that we listen through, and we're not going to spend an enormous amount of time on that because we don't have time for it today. But some of the more common ones I've already mentioned, like listening like you know it already, or listening whether you agree or disagree, listening whether it's right or wrong. We're really going to invite you to listen from what if it were true what we were talking about? What if it really was the way it was? And just try it on. Kind of the way we used to go to stores and try shoes on. We used to go to the stores and try jackets on. We don't do that so much right now during this pandemic, but you just try it on. Don't just immediately dismiss it. We're not asking you to believe anything we're saying. We're just asking you to try it on and look and see whether it's relevant to what you're dealing with, and see if you'd be willing to look at it with new eyes and listen with new ears. So if you go to the next slide, the easiest way to explain this about listening is the using an analogy of being on a plane, because most people have been on a plane, right? And right after you get on the plane, before it takes off, which this beautiful shot is, you buckle in, or hopefully you put your stuff in the overhead first and then buckled in. And then what happens? Well, the flight attendants come out, right? And so, and we all, if you've flown more than once or twice, how do you listen to these flight attendants?
Probably not very well.
Yeah. I mean, type in the comments if you know this word for word what they say, because we just don't listen anymore, after you've flown more than once or twice. And that's what you and I would call unconscious listening, or kind of our default listening. It's like want, we're just not really paying attention.
The parents, the adults in Charlie Brown's.
Yes, exactly. Then look, imagine, and again, this is just imagine that an hour into the flight, the captain comes on and says, ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing engine trouble. We're going to make it fine. We're going to land. We're going to be fine. But just in case, we're going to have those flight attendants come back out and go over the safety instructions. And then we ask, well, how would you listen now? Chances are you're going to listen a whole lot differently. It's going to be like, shush, shush. What are they saying? And so that's what we would call conscious listening. That's like all of your attention on something because you've assessed that it's life or death, or it feels like, super important. Now, is this webinar we're doing life or death? Of course not. But we are going to invite you to listen more on the really conscious level of listening. So if you think of this as a spectrum of unconscious to conscious, unconscious is, the normal way we listen to these flight attendants. And conscious is really when, you're afraid that the engine is failing, right? And so if you could listen to today with the kind of intentionality that you bring to a really important conversation, that's what will have you get the most value. And as I said, if you could try it on, consider it, sort of let it go to work on you, you really might see something brand new.
And it's an opportunity to listen for the gold, right? We're putting this webinar together. We've spent hours, we spent really years putting these concepts together, and we've distilled it down. We spent hours putting these slides together that you're about to see. And Lisa and I are just committed to you getting value out of the next hour.
Yes, and please ask questions in the comments. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Robbie.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And let us know what you are seeing, because it helps us to know what you're finding that's most helpful. So now, by the way, just a sort of side tip here, we're talking about this when it comes to this webinar, but this is also really important for the whole time that you're being a leader in listening and noticing how you listen. Mm-hmm. Because if somebody comes in to talk to you and your first thought is, oh, here they go again, you're in the unconscious part of listening. And if you could notice that, and if you could just take a breath and actually bring some conscious listening and coming from a different point of view, you will be shocked at what you have missed in the past and how much better that conversation will go.
Absolutely. And folks, we spend maybe 2 hours in our in-person courses and training talking about listening. You've just gotten that in the first 12 minutes. So
Yeah.
something out of it, feel free to hit that like button if you're getting something out of it. Feel free to share this webinar because we are really just getting started. We wanted to just give you an overview of what to expect here, right? We're going to give you an introduction of our thoughts on solving this recruitment dilemma and this retention dilemma. And we're going to talk about like really your leadership style and being the kind of person that people want to be around, right? Developing the environment that is so magnetic and attractive, it just draws people in and people don't want to leave.
Absolutely.
And we are at the end of this going to talk about our Keeping the Best course announcement that we put together. Lisa's been a coach for over 25 years. Yes, folks, she started when she was 4. She's been a coach for over 25 years, and her and I, for the last few years, have really distilled down the essential elements of coaching. To be a great leader is to be a great coach. And we're going to talk about that a little bit at the end because we did open the doors for our Keeping the Best program this week. It's another reason why we're doing this webinar. And we're also going to give you a special thank you bonus for attending if you stick around to the end of this. So we will provide you with a coupon code for I think it's our Influence Without Arm Twisting audio, which one of my favorite audios, Lisa, that it's a 60-minute audio. And I think I've listened to it at least 15 times. Every time I listen to that audio, I get something else out of it. It allows you to gives you a few extra tools in your toolbox on how to positively influence other people in your organization. So be sure to stick around to the end for that.
All right. So here is basically the premise of our philosophy on recruitment and retention. And that is that it's not about doing. It's not about, let me say it a little better. It's not that there isn't doing, but that so many organizations focus on what actions do we take, or what's the problem, and why don't we have more people who want to volunteer? And then they come up with answers like, well, young people don't want to volunteer, or you can't get good help anymore. And there's all these stories. We don't pay well enough. All these really valid reasons. I'm not saying that they're not valid. Mm-hmm. But they are explaining a result rather than having you look at what's the source. And what we say, and we don't just say this because it sounds good, we say this because it's proven to be true, that when you focus on what's the kind of culture, environment, what is it's sort of like, what is the experience people have around your organization? That is what your result is. If you have difficulty, if you have a revolving door, that is the result of a culture that produces that result. So I love what you have written down here. Everyone thinks they need to solve the recruitment issue, and it's you got your eye on the wrong thing. Now, when we go to this next slide, I want to give you another analogy, and that is, the exhaust from a car is a real problem for us, right? It is, air pollution, and it's noxious and all that stuff. So if you liken the recruitment issue to the exhaust in the car, if we only try to fix that exhaust, it is going to be a never-ending challenge. But instead, if you go upstream, so to speak, and you go, okay, how do we redesign the engine so that we don't have these noxious fumes? How do we shift and change that engine so that we have a different result? See, to a combustion engine, exhaust is not a problem. It's a naturally occurring result. Same thing with recruitment and retention. If you have low recruitment, if you have a revolving door of people coming and going, we ask you to consider the possibility that it's not about that, working on that. It's about looking at how have you designed your organization, or how has your organization been designed such that you have those results. And the good news is, and this is why we're calling this being the leader people want to follow, is the number one driver of culture is leadership. And that's leadership at any level. That's not just the top, or as people think about it, or the head of the organization. Leadership at every level, whether you have a leadership title or not, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's who are you being, and what is the wake that you're leaving, like the wake of a boat, right? The wake of a boat has a ripple effect. So whether you're one of the newest members of an organization, or you've been around for a long time and you have a senior leadership position, everyone can influence the culture, because the number one driver of culture is leadership.
And as Lisa said, we are going upstream with this issue. We're going to look under the hood. We're going to look at the engine and how we can start to change the structures that produce the result that you're getting now.
And the main structure we're going to focus on is leadership.
And this quote, Lisa, I love. It's a farmer does not grow crops, right? A farmer creates an environment where crops can grow. And you can liken that to your organization. How are you as a leader, whether you have that position of leadership or not? How are you cultivating people in your organization? What space are you providing for them to grow? And how are you treating people in your organization? These are all things that we can look at.
Yeah. And this really, when I first saw this, it really knocked me out, because I was like, maybe stop and think. And I was like, what do you mean a farmer doesn't grow crops? And I was like, oh yeah, they just put the seeds in the ground. I don't mean that just, I mean, that's hard work.
Yeah.
But if they don't cultivate the soil and know what they're doing, and how, like the proper light, the proper food, the proper everything, the seeds aren't going to grow. The seeds naturally will grow, and human beings are like that. We will naturally grow if we're given the right environment.
And Lisa, what does a farmer look for to grow these crops, right? A farmer has its focus on how well hydrated maybe these crops are, the soil, the nourishment, pesticides, all of these different factors to grow. So if you as a leader are thinking of where is your focus, right? The Gallup organization does engagement research, and they looked at both nonprofit and for-profit healthcare organizations. And this is pretty common across the board, no matter what organization you're in. But you look at this bottom, maybe 20%. Those are your folks that are actively disengaged in the organization. The folks that if you gave them I've said this before, a golden desk, right, they'd complain about how heavy it is. And often, unfortunately, I think the default way of being for a leader is we focus so much on that squeaky wheel, right? We focus so much on all the things that are wrong, all the problems, the vocal minority of folks in the organization, that we often ignore the folks that are the high performers, the highly engaged folks that are showing up early. They're doing a great job. They're making sure that they're following policies and protocols. They're in the zone of excellence. And unfortunately, we just, I think, tend to ignore those folks because they're doing such a great job. And then you've got the people in the middle of your organization that could really be swung in either direction. And unfortunately, again, if you focus as a leader on the actively disengaged folks, the people in your organization are going to start to feel drained.
Yeah. And just to be clear, the not engaged are the people that are coming in, doing their jobs. Right. They're not problems. I mean, they're typically, just coming in, doing their jobs, leaving, and as a matter of fact, because I've seen this in other industries, these statistics, and healthcare has a more engaged at the top than most people. Most of the other ones I've seen, most of them are 20% or lower.
You're right.
But anyway,
not engaged are usually around 70%, I think. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that says something. But then the point you made is so important, is what you focus on, you get more of. Yeah. And the misunderstanding, and it's nobody's fault, this is innocent. This is the leadership we've inherited, how to be leaders, is of course you're going to focus on the problems, right? Those are the ones that they're calling your attention. And so unfortunately, then that's the culture that gets created. That's the environment that you're growing your new people in. and that middle section, the not engaged, are going to get dragged down to that, rather than if you can even divert your focus to the engaged people 50% of the time. If you could increase it, if you could get some balance even, then the people who are in that not engaged category, that 50 to 51%, they would move up. They are going to move towards what you want more of, because you're cultivating that environment. And so, just want to say last thing is, in my experience, and Robbie and I have talked about this innocent misunderstanding of what leaders focus on is really a big driver of why we have these, I want to say, disengaged and toxic environments that repel people, that stop people from joining and staying. This is one of the culprits, if you will.
Excellent. Folks, if this is making sense, we'd love to hear a yes or a thumbs up emoji in the chat, just to make sure you're tracking with us. We'd, again, appreciate you. If you follow along too, if you're on Twitter at all, you can tag us at 911 Leadership. Feel free to take a quote and post that. We'd love a little bit of engagement there. If you have a question, type it in the comments and we will fit it into this presentation. You can drive the dialogue a bit. I think, Lisa, we can go into these 5 areas that we've put together, these strategies for best impacting your own leadership.
Yeah, because that's what we really want to focus on, because, a lot, we get a lot of different people who participate in our programs. And again, not everybody's the chief or not everybody's the CEO of the organization. And so we want to make the biggest difference by helping everyone, right? And every one of us could take on these 5 things and look to enhance our ability to do this. And I'm just going to invite everyone to think about this like like a spectrum. There's novice and then there's mastery. And so for each one of these, you could be a 5 on the 1 to 10 scale of novice to mastery, or you might be a 2 in some and a 6 in others, or 8 in others. Just sort of, again, listen for how can you move yourself along? Because honestly, if you could do 1 to 3% improvement in any one of these areas over a period of time, you're gonna notice, you're like, oh my God, I'm 50% better at this now, or I'm so much better at this, being curious versus telling people what to do. And we're going to go into each of these a little bit, but I just like to give people that, because it's easy to kind of go, oh, I'm good at that one. Yes, you probably are, but if you could improve, if you could get 3 to 5% better, what might that look like?
Excellent advice, Lisa. And you and I have spent the last week really putting a whole mini series together about creating better engagement, motivation, and morale. Some of these are similar, but there's a lot in here that we're going to talk about. I know in the series, this was one of folks' favorites, the stop shoulding, right? Stop shoulding on yourself, stop shoulding on others. For me, it's almost a little alarm goes off in my head when I hear this word should, or I hear it come out of my mouth. I take a step back and say, wow, where am I shoulding in this situation, or putting my own thoughts and feelings or opinions on how things should be on the organization?
Yeah, and on each other. I mean, every time I hear somebody complaining or whatever, the first thing I think in my mind is, oh, I know what, here's what they should do. Like, duh, right? And we all do that. But when someone comes up to us and goes, hey, Lisa, here's what you should do, I'm like, back off, Jack. Like, you don't know. I tried that already, or blah, blah. Like, instant resistance comes up. And we forget that. And again, everything we're talking about is really innocent. There's no malintent here. This is just how we inherited and learned how to lead. It's like, of course I want to give people advice. Of course I want to help people. But if it comes across as shoulding, if it comes across here's what you should do, it's almost never received well. I mean, I can't, I've been a coach a long time, and I've never heard anybody said, oh, I love it when people tell me what I should and shouldn't do. Never. I don't know about you, Robbie, but people don't love that. We don't love it. So do your best to hear the shoulds in your own head about yourself and the shoulds about other people, because it really diminishes people in a way that we don't mean. We really don't mean it, but it does.
And I love that you've told me that you've talked about this before, and you definitely gave me another tool for my toolbox of how to interact with people. It's using words like consider. Would you be willing to consider? And it just gets people off the defense. It really has them like turn around and put themselves in your shoes, or vice versa, right? Or and really get to see somebody else's point of view, right? The slide, I think, is so perfect that depending on where you sit, right, you may be seeing two different objects.
Yeah, or, the one person here sees 3 objects and the other one sees 4, and I can see both depending on, which way I look at it, right? But we don't take that into consideration when we're having a conversation with people. And this, by the way, is not just leader to follower, or, this is husbands and wives and significant others and kids and parents and every single one of us. I mean, and we see this everywhere where one person has a point of view and the other person goes, no, you're wrong. And this is the way it is. And here's what you should do. And then again, that's where the shoulding comes in. So, we say the power of perspective is if you can get like, oh, I'm seeing it this way because of the lens that I'm bringing, because of the way I understand the circumstances. This person sees it the way they see it because of their lens and their circumstances. And there's a whole bunch of ways that they connect the dots that I don't know, which leads us into the next piece about being curious.
And I think, Lisa, if in our organizations we can slow things down a bit, if we can get curious, if we can stop that shoulding and just see from a different perspective and not react right away, and we could just take a step back, most of our problems would not be the problems that they are. I think it's when we think too quickly, we jump to conclusions rather than just trying to see it from their point of view.
Yeah, it could be stop shoulding and stop jumping to conclusions, because that's exactly right. You're spot on. And slowing down is one of the toughest things for people to hear, but it's really the way to handle these kinds of things, is to slow down, to not react. It's not about how fast. Again, we're not talking about when you're out on a scene. Of course, that's different. We're talking about when you're in your organization, or not during a critical incident. We're not saying slow down, although sometimes it is right to slow down, right? Like that's one of the tools in the toolbox sometimes, right? Yeah. But if you're willing to get curious and develop a learner's mindset, the old saying is curiosity killed the cat. So I love that you have the cat here being curious because I think it gets a bad name, curiosity. And the thing is that if we can slow down and be curious. And I mean, even asking one simple question, if someone, when we have the urge to say, you should do this, to actually slow down and say, would you like help with that?
Yeah.
When somebody's complaining, like that's just so respectful, but it's also curiosity, right? It's like, maybe they don't want help, maybe my good idea isn't needed here. But then you also have to get curious with yourself. Like, where could you learn a little bit more about the situation? I think that there's this terrible burden put on supervisors and managers and leaders that they have to know the answer. And it's just not true. It's just not true. When you have a learner's mindset, it allows you to experiment with different things. It allows you to trial and error. It allows you to learn from everyone around you. And people love that.
And it's a burden, I think, that we place on ourselves. Unfortunately, like by default, the unconsciously we place that burden on ourselves that we have to have all the answers and we have to answer that question right then and there.
Yeah.
I think there's something so powerful to, again, just listen to what people have to say. Ask them if, like, sometimes are you just venting, or do you want help with that? Do you want me to do something with that? Do you want me to follow up on that? And then it's okay saying, look, I don't have all the answers, but I'll find out if you want me to, and I'll get back to you. And making sure that I do get back to them.
You want to hear, just real quick, I was working with a coach once who was coaching me, and I had an assignment from my coach that said, during an introductory session, ask what else 4 to 5 times in a row, like not like a jerk, but like I'd say, well, tell me about the situation. And then they would tell me, and I'd say, well, what else about that? And what else about that? And I would do it 4 or 5 times. And in my head, I'm like, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, I learned so much more from those times I said, what else? And here I thought I was already listening and curious, but just asking that question, what else? Tell me more. Yeah. Is there anything else about that? What else? And the person was like solving the problem on their own. They're like, oh my God, you're the best. And I'm like, I did nothing but ask you what else. Like, people are smart when we give them a chance and we offer the opportunity for people to think things through. So I think being curious and really being willing to learn are key here, and being willing to reinvent yourself. Are you willing to recreate yourself? Because a lot of times we think, well, that's just the way I am. I'm this way or I'm that way. None of us have permanent personality traits. Personality traits are fluid and are always able to evolve. But we have to be willing to recreate ourselves. We have to, like I said before, are you willing to get 3 to 5% better at something? And if you are, then that's how come people want to be around you, right? People want to be around people who are open and willing to recreate themselves and to learn.
Well, I just want to pause here and say we're about halfway through with this webinar. We still have about the same amount of slides to go. I'd like to pause and just get curious. What are folks getting and what are you hearing from what we have to say about this? How could some of these tools help impact your leadership, or maybe could have helped avoid a situation that you faced in your organization? We'd love to hear some feedback. What are you getting? What are you learning? We're always curious about those stories. So.
Absolutely.
So Lisa, and as we get those stories, maybe we'll share them here. I know there's about a 10-second delay, I think, in the comments, but.
Yes, we can keep going, and if the comments come in, we'll just stop.
Sounds great.
So the third bullet, coaching versus telling.
And who likes to be told what to do?
Yeah, I know. It's good. It's right up there with the advice giving, right? Yeah, nobody likes to be told what to do. But again, when we've had other leaders model their way of leading, and we've seen it our whole lives. When we get in leadership positions, we think that's what we're supposed to do, is tell people what to do. And sometimes it's appropriate. It's directive. A directive approach is appropriate, but consider that most times it's not. It's not necessary, and it's, for the most part, occurs for people as being diminished, or they feel disrespected, or like you think they're dumb or something. And again, not your intention. I know that to be true. But it's how it's heard that matters, not what your intention is. It's how it's heard. And, we are a huge proponent of this. Our purpose as leaders is to create other leaders. Our only job is to develop people around us, really. If I shouldn't say our only job, but our number one job is to create other leaders and to develop other people. So coaching allows that to happen. And, coaching, the term coaching gets thrown around a lot. And people have heard me say this probably before, but it's kind of gotten co-opted by HR, human resources. And it unfortunately is a lot of times in organizations used as a disciplinary thing. And that's not the intention of coaching at all. In coaching, it's an equal relationship between you and the person you're coaching, or the people you're coaching, depending on the circumstances. But the intention is to co-create what's next, or solutions. And the premise of it is that all issues are resolvable. That there's, that your job with the person is to work together to create and discover a resolution. And and you're resolving things inside of a commitment to either helping the person to develop, or a commitment to keeping them in the organization, or I mean, the commitment can be any number of things, but it's not to, how do I want to say it? It's not to just, oh, try this. You know what I mean? It's a commitment to making a difference with the other person. That's really key. And coaching is about workability. You know, it's not about what's right or what's wrong, but what would work. And how many times do we lose sight of that? That there's more than one way to make something work. Wouldn't you agree, Robbie?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, people are saying, oh, this is the right way to do it, or this, no, that's the wrong way to do it. Again, anybody like to be told they're wrong?
Yeah, I mean, really, as a leader, you can kind of unleash somebody's creativity by allowing them to be a contribution and let them solve a situation or come up with a new idea that maybe you never would have thought of. And it would be great to have an organization full of people that are just excelling and that we're coming up like people that are just way smarter than me in the organization that are coming up with some brilliant ideas. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you think in terms of what will work, and by work, we mean what will produce the result you want. And that's just a different way of coming at something. And that's the intention of coaching. There's never a one size fits all answer. You know, we talked about this as part of having a learner's mindset. It's about experimenting and trial and error, a willingness to test things out. One of the things a coach that I had used to say all the time is, don't trust this, test it. Mm-hmm. And I invite people to do that with everything we're saying. You don't have to believe us, but go and test it out. Try it out for yourself and see if it doesn't make a difference. And is there one more bullet, I think?
I think that's there's more to the issue and situations you can see right now, as we said before, about the power of perspective, right? And your excellent advice about just asking, well, can you tell me more about the situation, especially if you're in that coaching relationship, to really just, again, see either a little more time, what time will bring, or slowing down, how that'll bring out new answers.
Yeah, there's always more to the issue. That's so true.
I think we've got some great comments too coming in here. And Kat says that a lot of people have opinions about the best way to go about approaching a challenge. And it does take a degree of an awareness or discipline to even remember to be curious and to remember to ask others what they think and develop them, rather than to dive right in and solve it for them. Kat, I think absolutely. I mean, we're all, a lot of us can be that type A personality that we love to say, you know, if I want something done right, I'm gonna do it myself. And absolutely, if we can slow down, if we can remember, and it's like just working on your muscles, right? You're not going to be perfect about this overnight, but if you can just slow yourself down and to bring some more awareness and discipline, absolutely. And Jim even says here, need to watch the word should. I say should way too much.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the interpretation. That's the key, right? That's what you have here, what you say here.
Yeah.
It's how it's being interpreted that matters, not your intention. That's great. Good for you, Jim. And it looks like Brian is looking for advice on how to deal with favoritism.
Yeah, Brian, I think if you could say a little bit more too about that, what's maybe the situation more that you're dealing with? Maybe it's about, as a supervisor or leader, how do you be more kind of, maybe so it doesn't appear that you're playing favorites in situations? Or
yeah, or other people, does it feel like other people are being like treated with favoritism? Right. So if you could tell us a little more, Brian, maybe we can help with that. And then, is it Rhiannon? We're talking about all EMS organizations, whether they're volunteer
paid or volunteer.
Yeah, right? or hybrid. I mean, a lot of organizations have some of both. So we really are looking at for everyone. So thank you, guys.
Great comments. Well, Lisa, would you like to go over here these distinctions of coaching? I know we do have a PDF guide that folks can download at emsleadershipacademy.com/ I think I will double check before I give you the wrong one, but I think it's /coach.
Yeah, we created this guide, this PDF guide. It's a free download, and it gives you a little bit more on each of these distinctions. Another way of thinking about distinctions are, these are like the essential elements for being in a coaching conversation versus a everyday kind of conversation or any other kind of conversation. And the first thing is conscious listening, which is what we talked about at the top of this webinar. Instead of listening from your past or listening from your labels of people or listening from you're stressed or too busy or whatever, whatever way of sort of approaching the situation, you really slow down and you consciously choose how to listen, whether you're going to listen for the gold or listen to learn or listen to connect, but you're not coming from a default listening. The second thing is, in order for it to be coaching, you have to ask permission. And this is usually a big sticking point when we're doing a live training on this. I'm just going to sort of give you the reasoning, and then I'm sure we could go into a lot of detail about this. But again, we're talking about coaching as a way of creating something new or solving something. So in order for you to create that equal relationship, you ask permission. Now, this isn't about going, okay, I'm asking you to please be on time. That's not what we're talking about. It's more like, hey, I have some ideas about how we could, fix this issue or come up with a new solution for this. Would you be open to a conversation? You're giving the person the opportunity to say yes, so that you now can have a conversation. And if at some point along the conversation, the person starts getting defensive or feeling like, they don't want anymore, you can say, okay, you said yes, so that's why I was, coaching you. If you need to take a break or if you want to talk about something else, we can. But it allows you to have this co-creating relationship, and that's really what asking permission is all about.
And I think people are more receptive to hearing a different perspective when they are themselves asking for help with that.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And then you want to establish confidentiality and make sure they know, like if you're going to sit down with someone and have a coaching conversation, who, if anybody else, if you have to report to somebody else or anything that might get disclosed, or if not, if everything is confidential, let them know that.
And I think be responsible, Lisa, sorry, would also be just making sure you're not going into those conversations dealing with a bunch of other issues, right? You're able to just set things aside, give them your 100% your listening, right? Instead of being distracted or bringing something that's bothering you into the conversation, which could be misinterpreted and could affect them. That's
spot on. Absolutely. And it's also being responsible for the outcome of the conversation, like owning that how this conversation goes is up to you as the coach. So good, bad, or anything in between, it's okay to be responsible for that. And especially if you're new to this kind of idea of coaching people, you're not going to get it right the first time. I've been doing it for almost 30 years and I still don't get it right all the time, most of the time, but not all the time. And then back to curiosity, wondering with the person is such a powerful tool. I'm wondering, what do you think about this? I'm wondering what you think the solution should be. I'm wondering how you might do this differently. I'm wondering what you need from me. It's such a powerful conversation to start with, I'm wondering. And then, what do you wish it would be like? And this is the one that gets dropped out so much of the time, acknowledging and appreciating people. Just acknowledging people for the courage to have this conversation and letting the person know you're coaching what works about them. What do you appreciate about them? Why are you grateful to have them as part of your organization? And if you don't have anything, you want to find something, because everybody has something you can appreciate. Even somebody who maybe feels resistant or disengaged, they're there and they're showing up. And that's something you can appreciate. And then of course, it's okay to share your thoughts, your ideas, what you see are the desired outcomes. That's an important aspect too. But you just want to be responsible for them, offer them as options versus shoulds. This is how I think, here's some ideas I have. Would you be open to that? So you just want to own your own thoughts and opinions.
And Lisa, these ideas of coaching conversations could be very informal. If somebody comes to you with an issue, they could be a little bit more formal and structured. Maybe as an alternative to performance evaluations, you want to do kind of a one-on-one meeting with people just to be able to give them feedback. I think people naturally, they want feedback. And if you can give them the feedback in the context too, acknowledgement, appreciation, and taking these other factors into consideration, that's going to go so far in your organization.
Yeah, the mini series that we did was all about a coaching mindset, which is distinct from having a coaching conversation like you were talking about, like a one-on-one. So this guide in particular, and the premise of coaching and these distinctions in coaching are really, obviously you could use them anytime, but they're really inside the context of sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation with somebody to resolve something or to create something, or any number of reasons why you might coach somebody.
Yeah. I think we've got a follow-up on Brian's question about really this perception or this incident that happened that maybe comes to be favoritism, right? A leadership position was recently created, and it was not posted for anyone else interested or qualified. It was given to what's seen as the favorite, and it's created a vacuum of people leaving due to not feeling a value.
Yeah. Well, I the only thing I can that comes to mind is to, I'm not sure what your position in the organization is that you're dealing with, but I think getting a communication with whoever did this, because there may be reasons and there may be a context for it that you don't know. I like to try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Even though I think, they did it for this reason and that reason and blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's things I don't know. Maybe there's things that I'm not aware of that are at play that might be leading to that result.
And I think it's also an example of the decisions that you're making without transparency, without communication to the organization. These things can be interpreted in ways in which maybe they didn't mean to do that. And I'm not condoning or saying that I know the situation at all, but I think it's another example of how we as leaders can be better communicators and be more transparent.
Absolutely. Hope that's helpful. Okay. Well, this next conversation, integrity, we could talk about for, 4 or 5 days and maybe scratch the surface. So we're just going to give you a different, possibly a different take on integrity. If you look in the definition of integrity, one of the definitions is whole and complete. And that means, like, if you think about a chair, for example, it has integrity if all the parts are there. That's whole and complete. It was designed for a certain weight, for example. If all the screws are in it, if everything it was designed for is present and working, then it's whole and complete. For human being, integrity, this concept of whole and complete, is about, are you walking your talk? It includes morality and ethics, but really that's only one of the aspects as far as integrity. It's really about doing what you said by when you said you would do it, or being in communication if you're not going to be doing what you said by when you said you would do it. So if I say to you, Robbie, hey, I'm going to have that handout ready for you by close of business tomorrow, then I work work inside that promise and set up my day so that I'm able to complete that. Now, let's say, something happens, whatever, I'm not able to do it, then I have to get in communication with you, not at close of business tomorrow, but earlier, some point, and say, hey, Robbie, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to get that handout to you. Something's come up. What do I need to do to clean up that mess?
Yeah.
Right? Because when you have a breach of integrity, if the other person is relying on you to complete that and you don't complete it, it's messing something up. And then you repromise or renegotiate. And the truth is that the studies that have been shown that have been done have shown that if you keep your promise all the time, which none of us can really do, but if you keep your promise, that is great. But what actually builds builds trust is if you break a promise, you're in communication about it. And when you repromise, you keep your promise, because people then know you don't take your word lightly, right? You don't just don't say, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that.
And again, just like building a muscle or like exercising, you begin to, when you say something and people hear what you're saying, like it has more meaning and purpose behind it. It's not just empty. Is another empty promise if you're dropping the ball all the time, or you're forgetting because you didn't write things down, you didn't put it in existence in a calendar.
And imagine if your organization was living inside this or working inside this concept of integrity, right? Like everybody had this. But as a leader, when you give your word, or you say, oh, I'll take care of that for you, and then it's never heard about again, that diminishes trust. Mm-hmm. Right? If you say, oh, I'll take care of that, and then you don't give a by when, and then the person doesn't know, should I go talk to you again about it? So it just leaves a lot of uncertainty. So it's really about not only giving your word, but putting it into existence somewhere and creating a timeline of when you said. And we always have good reasons when we don't keep our word, but often, it doesn't matter because the other person feels like, there they go again. They're just saying it and they're not doing it. So, be willing to look at yourself and honestly and say, you know what, I'm guilty of that. And I'm going to take that on, and I'm going to look to be, 5% better at keeping my word, and working your way up to a place where you're countable for when you say something, you're actually going to do it.
I love it. Be the type of leader that people can count on.
Yeah.
Countable, even better.
And then the other part of that is accountability, right? How can you hold somebody else to account for not doing what they said, or not following a policy, if you're always not, I shouldn't say always, but if you're a lot of times not keeping your word, right? The other thing about accountability for us is because of our philosophy that our number one job as leaders is to
create other leaders.
Thank you. Develop other people. We have a different take on it. So look for yourself. When you think about holding people accountable, what would you...
Comments too.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just telling people to type it in the comments, right?
Yeah, exactly. What does holding people accountable mean to you? Holding people accountable is blank. Is it hard, tiresome, exhausting?
People come to us all the time and they feel most challenged with, how do I hold people accountable? And a lot of people feel stuck. They feel like it can't be done, or it's difficult, or it's a challenge, or it's too much work.
Yeah, or if they're not in a leadership role, a specific title, they think, well, this isn't about me. You're not talking about me. It's like, yeah, anybody can hold somebody else accountable if you understand what it is. And, Robbie and I hold each other accountable all the time. That's how come our partnership works, is if we make a promise, or if we, say something, it's inside of our philosophy. It's we have integrity around it, and we're partners, but we hold each other to account. That's just part of the deal. That's why it works. So do you have any comments from people about what holding people accountable is?
Nope, I don't see any yet. So.
Okay, well, let's go to the next slide. Now, this may not seem relevant to the last slide, but consider whatever you put in that blank will lead to one of those.
One of these, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Well, for us, holding people accountable, it means developing people. We're helping people to grow. And again, like I said, this is about integrity, about helping people walk the talk. And accountability always lives in facts, in data, right? Not our story or assessment or interpretation. If someone said, I promise X by Y time, it either happened or it didn't happen. It's not, oh, he's lazy, or oh, he doesn't care, or she's disengaged, or it's, if you want to hold somebody accountable, it's a matter of, Lisa, you said you would have that handout to me by 5 o'clock on Tuesday, and I don't have it. There's no make wrong in that. There's no assessment in that. It's just this is the promise you made, and you didn't do it. And it's not like you didn't do it, you loser. It's you didn't do it. You just didn't do it. So it's a way of being in communication. And one of the things that we find is it's shocking to me, but even after all these years, is that people will give people assignments. They'll get a date by when they're supposed to do it, but then they don't ask for updates along the way. There's no communication between the time they hand off the project to the time it's due. And then they're shocked when it's not done the way they wanted it or whatever. It's like, no, you got to make requests for interim updates, and you got to, especially if you're in a leadership position, you ask for updates and what you expect by when you expect it to be done.
And Lisa, I think, again, my fault, I mixed up these slides, but
that's okay.
Holding people accountable, depending on the culture and the environment you create in your organization, you can look at maybe lower performing organizations versus a high performing team. Accountability can mean two completely different things, right? In a low performing team where people are more critical of each other, it's the blame game. It's filled with shame. It's punitive. People fear speaking up, and things become more reactionary.
Yeah, and a few in the know, the poor communication, right? And frankly, when you have integrity as like an open conversation, and accountability as a way of being, like when you're doing those two things, it leads to a high performing team. Those two things, I think, are the secret sauce to a high performing team. Is an organization that has trust, where it's a just culture. People feel free to express their concerns and ideas and mistakes. It's proactive. It's a learning organization. All that is happening when you have integrity and accountability.
And I think high performing teams are more comfortable having these conversations around it, so that there's more understanding what we mean as a high performing team and as an organization, what it means to us, and what does it mean when people keep their word, when they don't lose track of things, when they get back to you, when they do it by when they said they would do it. So absolutely. And we've got another comment here, Kat, saying, yeah, accountability, for them, it's hard to enforce. The person promises to do something but doesn't prioritize integrity as a personal value. So it's maybe an opportunity to have a greater conversation with your team and make it just talk about what would it mean for our team to have integrity and accountability and hold each other accountable, right? It's not me preaching to you that you need to be more accountable. It's saying, like, look, I need to be just as accountable, and I want you to hold me accountable, and have those mutual agreements in an organization.
And I think this is powerful in any relationship, frankly. I mean, it's not easy to have, but when you recognize that when you don't keep your promises, or you don't be in communication about your promises, it diminishes you to the other person. And that you become less and less trustworthy, and your word means less and less. And you have to ask yourself as a leader, is that really what I want? Is that how I want to be known? And I think it's important to create agreements when people become part of the organization, or at some point, whether it's during a coaching conversation or at some point, to create agreements like, hey, let's agree to be our word. Let's agree to have integrity around our promises. And that's what this means. And let's hold each other accountable. And that's not only what high performing people want, but I think that's what most people really want.
Well, I think some of these final words here, this is a great quote from Simon Sinek, right? It's a great attitude to take on. Leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge.
Yeah, and a lot of folks don't have that philosophy. And again, innocently, because they haven't stopped to say, what kind of leader do I want to be? Or, as one of my early coaches said to me, it's easy to be great when things are great, but who are you going to be when things are difficult and challenging? That's the true test of leadership. And, this cartoon that we had created for us, it's pretty provocative. And we don't, what we mean in it is, it's just easy to want change, want things to be different, but are we willing to raise our hand and be the one who changes? And that's what we're saying in this. If you want, all change starts with you. It's never about the other person. As much as it looks like it's the other person or the other people, it never is. All change starts with us 100% of the time.
And a great quote by Albert Einstein, right? No problem can be solved from the same level of thinking that created it. We must learn to see the world anew. And I really think by you just joining us here tonight, we know that you're committed to your organization and to being the type of leader, again, that people want to follow, and that you can see the world anew. You could see your organization, you could see your people anew.
And that can be some of the hardest things to do, because, when we think, oh, that person doesn't have integrity or that person's not trustworthy, it's like giving up that point of view takes something, right? It feels risky to give up that point of view. But if you want change to happen, you have to be willing to see the world anew, including that person, and wonder if you could say, sometimes that person is untrustworthy, or sometimes that person is lazy, or sometimes, like, even a tiny little bit, be willing to see the other person a little differently will provide such a different experience.
Absolutely. And this graphic here, really, I think it represents what we talk about with leadership and leadership development, right? Leadership, you could see it as a path. You could see it as some people have said, climbing a mountain with no top, right? It's just being on a path towards a greater future.
Yeah, and thinking again of it in terms of novice to mastery. When I first started out as a coach, I was novice, and I had, even though some people could say, 25 years in, I've mastered it. I haven't mastered it. I am in the game of mastery. Certainly, I'm way further along than I was when I first started, and I'm proud of who I am. But as a coach, but I'm always learning, and I know, Robbie, you're always learning. And most people that are on this leadership path, if you're willing to say, "Oh, I'm in the game of mastery," then you see that there's different steps you can take, and different ways of enhancing your capacity as a leader, whether it's working on your communication, or working on being a coach, or working on being more, having more integrity, whatever area you want to improve, to really focus on that and say, hey, I'm willing to move this forward.
And before we get to the special gift, again, the downloadable audio influencer that arm twisting, we're going to give you a coupon code. We just want to talk about this path of novice to mastery, right? Lisa and I have spent years putting together materials for emergency medical services across the world. And we've distilled down, if you're on the path from novice to mastery, we've really distilled down the premise of coaching. We say to be a great leader is to be a great coach. We want you to coach a high performing team in an organization, because really, who doesn't want to be part of a winning team? Who doesn't want to be part of that camaraderie, that excellence, that environment that's so magnetic, it just draws people in? And imagine not being on the hamster wheel of recruitment and retention, not having that revolving door in your organization. That's the reason why we created our course called Keeping the Best.
Yeah, and if people think about the best leaders that they've ever experienced, chances are a lot of the qualities, a lot of the things we've talked about, you could put in as being a great coach. They weren't telling you what to do. They weren't forcing you to do this or that. They were bringing out the best in you. They were helping you to discover things for yourself. That's the opportunity of being a coach. And again, I'm not talking about the kind of coach I am, where people, that's all I do. I'm talking about, and what we're talking about is a a way of interacting with people that brings out their best and helps you to keep them around your organization because they want to have more of that. They want to continue to develop. They want you. They're looking to be on a high performing team. They're not looking to just, get through the day. And that's really what this course is all about.
And again, you can register. We only open up registration about once a year for this training. You get lifetime access to the program. So if you visit emsleadershipacademy.com/KTB for keeping the best, you'll be able to enroll in the course. We are adding some special bonuses, some early bird, fast action bonuses, you could say, right? So an incentive to sign up. We're putting our 3-part mini series on increasing engagement, motivation, and morale. So we've got almost 3 hours of training that we've recorded in the last week talking about these topics, and we're including that. We're also going to include one all-access pass to one of our virtual conferences. Lisa and I have hosted 3 different virtual conferences, actually 4 technically. The EMS Leadership Summit, the EMS Safety Forum. We've done our 2nd annual EMS Leadership Summit. I mean, we've had close to 10,000 people attend these virtual events. It's been such an honor and a privilege to have some of the greatest speakers from around the world join us. This last October, we had 3,000 people join in from 28 different countries. So it was really, really a great treat. So we do want to give you that code for, again, joining. Let me just make sure.
Can I just say something about the payment options?
Yeah. Oh, right. I forgot about that.
That's okay. You got a lot going on you've got to deal with. I just get to read the slide. It's normally $447. I have to say I'm very, very proud of this course. I was not additionally a fan of putting things online. I didn't have much experience with that. And Robbie and I talked and we decided we would do it, but only if we could be super proud of what we put together. And I am really happy to say I'm very proud of this course. It's a very robust course. Well worth $447, no kidding, if not more. But we are offering it this week until February 18th at $297. Includes all those bonuses. And we now have a split pay option, right, where you can have 2 payments. You pay a little more, but it's because of the 2-payment system. If you pay one time, it's $297. Mm-hmm. And or if you are someone who is going to have your agency pay for it, we have an agency invoicing option. So you can check all those things out when you go to the registration page. We are going to stay on for a little bit to answer questions, to anything you want to talk about for a little bit. We are eager to hear what you have to say. We're hoping that you got a lot out of tonight. But if any of this even remotely spoke to you, if you had one aha, if you had one thought that went, I never thought of it that way, then this course is for you. Because it dives very deeply into everything we talked about in this webinar. It dives very deeply. And in addition to videos in every section, just about, there's also a bonus vault. Once you complete the program, there are a number of videos of different scenarios that you might might deal with as a leader in your organization, like somebody, having personal issues, or somebody who won't get on board, or somebody who's disengaged. And there are these instructional videos in the course. In this, you have to just go through the whole course. And at the end, there are these videos that you can access for a lifetime. If you bump up against any of these challenges, they're right there. It's a library for you to go, how do I deal with this? And you go and you get this 20-minute video.
Yeah, at least you brought together some of the greatest coaches, some of your colleagues that you have such respect for, and that recorded some excellent conversations on holding people accountable and accountability. Those are things that people just have such a challenge with, and it's so great that we've added additional content to this bonus vault. You've gifted a copy of your book as well, bringing out the best in your employees. So thank you for doing that. But we do want to also give folks, again, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. We'll answer your questions. We'll stay on as long as you need us to answer your questions about recruitment, retention, attitudes, situations, keeping the best course, whatever you want. We're here for you. If you, for sticking with us here through this last hour and 15 minutes, we want to give you a special gift. This is the Influence Without Arm Twisting audio. It's a 60-minute downloadable audio. You can use this code R&R Leader 21. So use that code, copy that down. If you go to emsleadershipacademy.com/shop, you can download that. It's normally a $20 product. It's worth way more than that, but we put it up there for $20. Like I said, I've listened to that program at least 15 times. Every time I listen to it, I hear something else that I get out of it. And it just reminds me to, again, a couple more tools in the toolbox of in your communication and helping, again, getting people to see maybe what's in it for them, or how do you help people in your organization see your point of view.
And how long will that code be good for?
It's going to be good through the 18th. So make sure you redeem it in the next few days. I would just write it down or redeem it now. And then you'll get it by, once you type in that code, you will get it by email. So we're going to talk about, I'll put this code, I guess, in the little scrolling thing too. So people have it, R&R Leader 21, and that's at shop. Right.
I know we show CDs, but we don't mail out CDs anymore. It's all MP3. But that is what it used to look like when we first did it.
Lisa, maybe you could talk about these great, the feedback we've gotten from this course, from the material, from the mini series this last week.
Well, what I'm loving is that it seems like people are hungry for this, not only from people who have already enrolled in the Keeping the Best, because we did launch it once before, and we've been getting amazing feedback from people who have taken it. But last week when we did the mini series, it was amazing to hear people's ideas and what got sparked, and just being in the conversation. And to me, that's my favorite part of doing these live, whether they're webinars or mini series or whatever, is just getting the opportunity to hear from people that they saw something or heard something that is going to make a difference for them. And we had one person say that between the second part of the mini series and the third part of the mini series, that they actually ended up in a coaching conversation. And he said it was going really sour, and then he shifted his mindset to coaching mindset, and he said it turned out great. And I was so happy to hear that, And then on Friday, we did a live coaching demonstration. We actually had 2 volunteers and coached each one of them individually. You and I did. And just to hear from those 2 people that we coached what they got out of it, and then the slew of people who watched it and just told us that they were dealing with many of the same things, and they didn't, they never thought of that. Imagine if you could be that for someone else. I mean, you and I get to do that all day, talk to people, help them find new ideas. Imagine as a leader, if you had the skills to help people change their lives, change the course of their career. I mean, that's what's possible when you take the Keeping the Best course. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke here. Test it out for yourself. And we have a money back guarantee. So, there's nothing to lose here by signing up for it. But you could learn from taking this Keeping the Best course. You could learn how to provide the listening that people need, help them discover new ways of thinking, come up with ideas, change their career, change their life. Who doesn't want to do that? Like, I live for that. So.
Kat, we've got some great comments here. This is a good reminder that change starts with us. Absolutely. That we cultivate an atmosphere and may unwittingly elicit undesirable behaviors and responses from others without considering our own part in that interaction. That's so well said, Kat.
Thank you, Kat. Ain't that the truth? I recognize that as a possibly me. I don't know.
This is great. Brian says he appreciates the time and thanks us. Absolutely.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to have you. I hope that it was helpful what we talked about. I will tell you that if you download Influence Without Arm Twisting, it'll help you, I think dealing with that favoritism issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Possibly. I mean, I think, it's about influencing others. And that's what that whole audio is about. It gives you exactly what you need to be able to shift how you communicate to influence others.
Again, we're putting the code on the bottom of the screen. You can go to our shop at emsleadershipacademy.com/shop. Use that code R, the little ampersand R, leader 21, recruitment and retention leadership, right? 2021. And you can download that free program that's normally, I think, $20 on our website. We're taking your questions about recruitment and retention. We did also get a question too about our refund guarantee. And yes, we are offering 30-day money-back guarantee. We would like you to at least get through some of the modules so you take it, because really we're committed to you having, again, value. But if for any reason you decide it's not for you, we are offering that money-back guarantee. We are able to do agency invoicing. Again, we can generate that. We put all the details on the website, emsleadershipacademy.com/KTB.
And we have PayPal now too, right? People can either use our direct.
PayPal, yeah, that's a great question. PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Pay, credit card. So it all works together. And if you just go to that website and click the enroll button, it goes to our shopping cart, and you can utilize any of those payment methods, and as well as PayPal, right there. Does anyone else have any other questions? What they're feeling challenged by? We're just monitoring the comments here, so we are happy to stick with it and answer any other questions. If you do have it, just put them in the comments. Wanted to make sure you had our email address, support@emsleadershipacademy.com. We do have more resources available on the website. Lisa and I put together a mini course, a mini communication course as well. That's currently free. We are going to add a price tag to that soon. We've had over 600 people take that free mini course and give us the most amazing testimonials, how it's shifted their mindset about coworkers. They see people differently. I mean, all sorts of great feedback from just taking this mini course. And that was one of our first experiments, right? Into seeing if we could take the training that we love to deliver in person and could we transition it online. We did that over probably 5 or 6 years ago now.
Yeah. And you see short hair Lisa there. But the other I want to say about that is don't let the mini don't let the word mini in any way diminish the course, because it's a 4-module course, but it's a very powerful course, and it's free for anyone. You just put your information in and you get it for free. And the cool thing is there's the one of the exercises that's in there is the one that people's lives get completely disrupted, because they go, oh my God, I never thought of that. And they have these great, I mean it in a good way, disrupted. Like their thinking, I should say, gets disrupted in a very good way from one of the exercises that's in there. And I get emails. I love those emails when people sign up for that course. And they go, oh my God, I never thought of that. This is so great. And you're right. That's when I knew if we could put that course up there and get those kinds of results, that we could do more. And so that's where Keeping the Best came about. We just added a whole bunch of new content to Keeping the Best, which is why another reason why we're opening the cart is because we just put some new content in there. We will continue to add content and update it as time goes on. But you get lifetime access. It's one-time fee. And you have lifetime access. And I can't stress enough how valuable it is to have a bonus library of coaches having a conversation about how to deal with everyday challenges that leaders in EMS face. And I think that in and of itself, you did nothing else in that course, but got the bonuses, it would be worth it. But I will say you have to do the course. You have to do the modules in order to access the bonuses. Because the bonuses without the understanding in the modules aren't as effective.
Absolutely. Also, I figured we'd throw a slide in here to promote our great lineup of speakers that we have at the EMS Leadership Summit. We've had over 30 speakers from 8 different countries this past year, and we are putting an encore presentation together too. So if you go to emsleadershipsummit.com, you can watch these speakers and these presentations for free. We had an international roundtable discussion from folks about education and reciprocity and working internationally and abroad. We had the great Wendy Lund talking about resiliency, and we had Mark Tinia from Richmond Ambulance Authority talking about the press and media and how we can really bring that into organizations. Scott Moore bringing his expertise in EMS and as an attorney in human resources, which was excellent. So lots of amazing speakers, and the other half of the speakers aren't even on this slide. But
no, we had David Daniels talking about race in EMS, and Rebecca Murphy talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then Steve Chandler was talking about coaching, being a coach as a leader. And then Barb Patterson talked about the hidden variable for being an effective leader. So it was a wide range of speakers, like you said, from like 28 countries. And it was, I'm sorry, from 8 countries. The participants were from 28 countries. So it was crazy good. So much fun, so much valuable content. And if you buy an all access pass for that, you can get CMEs as well.
Absolutely. So again, we are just wrapping it up here. I will put this last slide up here. Again, if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to us. The cart is open and enrollment is open to Keeping the Best. We're really thrilled about this program, to see more people take advantage of this this great training that Lisa and I have put together. Don't forget, use the code RNR Leader 21. You can download your free audio from our shop at emsleadersacademy.com/shop. So, all right, Lisa. Well, excellent job tonight. I'm thrilled that we put this presentation together to talk about recruitment and retention in a way that I don't think anyone's really talking about recruitment and retention.
I agree. And, if you got value out of this, we'd love to hear it. If you could put it in the comments. If you go out and try 1 or 2 of these things, come back and give us a shout. Or feel free to email us at support@emsleadershipacademy.com. If you have any questions about anything, if there's anything we can help you with, please email us. We do weekly Q&As that we take questions from people. So, if you have questions about what you're dealing with, please feel free to email us.
All right. That about wraps it up, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and stay healthy.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Robbie.